Well then, uh, I know that this is something that I guess Henry wanted me to do for a while, and I think given that it's like Sundays, probably have a day off to do stuff. Let's do some market watch, I guess. Welcome to the first episode of Tap or Trap in the Schwarz Marketplace. So, if you guys don't know, there's a very interesting thing going on with market watches where, in Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Card Fight Vanguard, there's a lot of interesting things going on there. There's a lot of YouTube channels that do market watches for those things. And for something like Weiss, it's actually something that's very narrow, where not a lot of people really go into. So I do think that, hey, maybe Team Greylaw can try and do something at it. I know that I haven't published the Weiss streams in a while, but I know that this is something new, something that I don't have much time to prepare about, so we can only see what happens. I think what we can start off with is the English scene. So in the English scene, we have here a couple things that will be popping up soon, especially with the recent announcements that Bushiroad made over in the next couple months, I guess. So right now, what I'm looking at right now is JKTCG. Some of the stuff that I do is pretty much you got JKTCG on one screen. I got Card Market for the EU scene. I have UUT for JP, and it could have some translate over into English. And then you have the TCG player, where they actually have Vice Wars cards as well. So the first thing I want to go over is the fact of going into um, JKTCG, because JKTCG is probably one of the most interesting sources that has been a source for English vice versa singles prices for a while now, and up until like last year, we did have some members of the community at Time Warp that has went from JKTCG to UUT because they've been going into more JP type of decks. So right now I'm looking at the JKTCG and looking at this. I don't know if you guys see it right now. With my damn tripod get in the way. We have ourselves pretty much sealed products. We have pretty much the very first waves or so. I know Gurren Lagann just came out within the last 2 weeks. So I don't know if you guys see it at all, but if not, we have sealed products for at least, the super special signature where you have the SSPs. It's kind of like if you just knew the Vice Swords, they have pretty much, your normal rarities, then you have your SPs, and then you have your SSPs. So the SSPs, the only set in English that has come out with an edition like that beforehand was actually Contact Collection, where they did SSPs and did that for a run. So in this regard, we have here pretty much your main characters for Gurren Lagann. We have Kamina, we have Yoko, we have Naya, and then we have Simon. So this is actually at least decent prices so far. I've seen how at least the SPs, none of them are below $60, which is great. At least it gives value and incentive for somebody looking to buy a box. And I know that with people trying to get boxes on the cheap, it's definitely good to just take a look at what big hits you guys can try and make out of. Now, unfortunately I haven't looked into what are the cartons or what are the ratios for what's chance to pull in SP, what's chance to pull in SSPs. It might be similar to what Contact Collection is, where like Contact you may have an SP or two, three SPs in a single case, or SSPs you may have one or less. Pretty much, the chances of getting the SSPs is not really that high. So at least in that regard, I've seen that at least Gurren Lagann in the English set, a lot of people have teased how the SSPs have really come out as a very value heavy set, especially after such a key and beloved anime series that they would go out on their way to do all this. Now, this is pretty much what JKTCG is. Now, if I want to go to say Card Market, a Card Market, I'm not sure where. Let's see. I got Bang Dream Parties, got all that stuff. So far, I don't see much of Gurren Lagann in here, mostly because they're probably just still on English where they go over Madoka and SAO. I'm not sure what the English meta is or the European meta is like, but there could be some stuff going on there. I think in terms of UUT, UUT is something that like I'm trying to still digest here because there's there's a lot of stuff going on where I'm trying to find if I can just find Gurren Lagann. Gurren. I probably should have done this before I started this stream. Well, there we go. Tango and Top and Gurren Lagann. We'll do there, and then we'll try to do SPs here. Search up. All right. So pretty much what's like it's you kind of knock off pretty much knock off 1-0 for Japan, and you basically have what's roughly equivalent to English, so, or two twos actually. So with 12,800 yen, if you just go over to basic yen to dollar, all right. So a thousand yen $9 and cent. So let's just say if it's like 12,800. So you have $115 for SSPs. So at least with the way that the SSPs lined up, they're actually okay because comparing that to JKTCG, 150 for the Kamina versus 115 for the Japanese SP. So it's at least something that you can see how English would value it a little bit higher because a lot of times how English prices can be different from Japanese prices that they can actually end up being very skewed in the fact that the English diversity is definitely lower than the Japan diversity. So it's definitely a it's probably one of the key reasonings that people would use to determine how the differences in prices from a JP SSP for Kamina and a JKTCG English SP Kamina right here. Now, of course, I'm broadcasting to you from like literally my tripod, and I don't know if you can see all this, but of course you can always look up these sites. One of the best ways to really keep yourself informed and not ripped off in the Weiss Schwarz community, you want to make sure you have multiple resources to kind of counter what your values are or to confirm that your values are correct. And of course, a lot of times people would go on sites like JKTCG. You could probably look on Reddit maybe just to see like if there's any trends or people post screenshots. If you're in Europe, you have a card market which just opened up its Weiss Schwarz scene in recent months. Then you also have UUT where you're gonna have to do a little bit of translating on your smartphone or computer if it's nearby, but it's still a very reliable list, especially if you're playing in the Japanese meta for a while. And then you have your classic TCG player where they actually do have some markets for the Weiss Schwarz line, so I thought that was pretty interesting. You could at least like getting more value out of hey, like this stuff's selling, so might as well get in there. And the unfortunate part is there's not much. Yeah, there's literally not much in Weiss Schwarz going on. Now, the only things I was very curious about was how the Gurren Lagann would turn out. Now, I like how unopened booster packs are going for $6 each. Well, it could be because some of the Bushiroad print runs are very limited, so a lot of times Bushiroad, when they would put out a set, it would basically have maybe at most 2 to 3 print runs. So having 2 to 3 print runs is very, very risky in a way because they're not sure they're going to order out another reprint. They're not sure how successful it's going to be. Of course, if it seems successful, they're more than be happy to do another print run or include some of the cards in reprint sets later on. Because right now, in terms of say values, so one of the most infamous Sword Art Online sets or cards ever was probably Last Shot Xeno. And so here, let's go on TCG Player and see what we have here. Let's do Last Shot Xeno. Okay, so as you get into Last Shot Xenon, we literally have the re-edit set, which was the very recent set that came out for SAO. And market price, $15. And that's the reprint, which is pretty bonkers for at least somebody that just came out in the last set, and then the reprint is actually more than the second set, the GGO for SAO. Now, of course, you can see how some of the values here are kind of like stabilizing into terms of the same as the reprint. I guess like of course another thing is when you see no image available, you know something's a little bit fishy. So I think what I see here in terms of that, you can see how some are just like lowballing quite a bit, but it's at least closer to the market price. Now, what my understanding from market price to actual sale value is that I feel like I'm in terms of market price, it's just like the sole value of the card if you're picking up right there and then. For the shipping included, I can see why they would charge more because at least it seems like how much money do you want to invest in order to make sure that your card makes it over there and is still in play condition, not damaged condition. So we have that for you. Now, if I can just see what they have there. Now, oh god, trying to get into other things. I know that another thing with SSP. So let's actually see if. Oh my god, it's not translating. Yeah, I'm having a hard time trying to go through UTE, but I guess you get the idea. Now, another set I want to actually go over would be Contact Collection, just because that Contact Collection when they announced how they're gonna get the foreign ships, the European ships, that's probably gonna affect the values of some of the Contact sets that we're gonna be that we currently have, because right now, unlike Japan. English, I'm not sure if I can get this confirmed or not, but English still has pretty much no ban list. They just altered one of the cards that was banned in Japan, and that card is the level 2 that grants all your fleet girls with +1 soul, which is amazing because +1 soul really helps out games, especially if you're trying to push for damage in. And with the announcement of Kantai Volume 3, probably there's going to be some changes in values. So, if I tripod still is with me here. Contact Collection. Alright, so this was the first set that I told you earlier before that they had SPs and then they had SSPs, which is a very, very big thing. However, you can see that how far these SPs and SSPs have fallen. Because look at this. Yamato SP is $25. Usually that would be the price of like a good double rare or something, or even like a really classy triple rare. And the SSP from a Yamato, $60. Now that's pretty tough because the problem is all these cards here are sold out. So all these prices that are available right now, you don't know how many are being sold. So what I would probably do, I would offset that. So let's go to something like TCG Player. Let's actually copy first Yamato class Battleship Yamato. Go over to TCG Player and let's paste it. So let's see what this Yamato is actually going for. So we have our basic double rare from the set. So that's 269. People are selling it for close to 3, including shipping. They also include the one from the second set, which is a little bit more, maybe like $1 or so more. Now, the market prices here is, you can see the difference here from JKTCG. You see how first class Yamato Battleship Yamato, the regular SP market price is $50. SSP $60. So you can see from JKTCG, $60 from JKTCG, $60 from TCG Player. So if anything, I want to also see price guides. Okay, that price guide was just a lot. That's okay. Let's just see if we can click on this and see how it goes. There's no price trends. There's nothing. So literally, it's kind of like it's in the guideline of the borrower or the buyer and the seller because you want to make sure you have a fair price. So check, is it near mint? Is it light played? Is it mod played? Is it heavy played? Damage, etc. You want to make sure you be as open and respectful of the person that you're trading with, or selling and bartering or buying from as possible, because you don't know how far they can go in a negotiation. So, at least in this regard, having at least 2 sources to check off of that a lot of players use, it's good. It's very good. Because at least it adds on to your argument how you believe this card should be that value. And then minus whatever the condition on the card is, but of course, you want to make sure that you're not talking out of your ass. Let's see here. I'm trying to think of like other sets right now. So, we can go back to Kantai. Now, Kantai. Now, set 1's probably already sold out. So, if you guys haven't been to a Bushiroad World Championship qualifier, or WCQ or a Bushiroad Regional Championships for English, you can see that there are actually people out there that are still selling OG sets. Now, the prices of how those OG sets come into play, they can vary. You gotta be very careful about that because you don't want to get hosed. So, what I did was I wanted to just buy a Kantai set just to help finish out my deck, see if I can get other high rarity stuff and take it from there. So what I did, you have to scope it out. You have to go to the two vendors that Bushiroad has. If you ever been to the Bushiroad regional qualifiers, you've seen some of the past vlogs that we have on the channel. There's always at least two vendors at the event, and so from that regard, you can head over. You can see what box they have, what they're selling it for. Now they're selling it for about maybe like 70 $80, which is understandable because the set's out of print. It's a very limited set. More boxes are being opened, so that means like you can see some of the prices here may be going up. Now, of course, you also have to outset that from the fact of how many times it's played. Now, with the JP, well, the foreign ships coming over into English. Hopefully, I don't know if it's at the end of the year or next year, but at least at the announcement alone, you could probably check back on the values on both JKTCG, and you can check it back on, as you say, TCG Player. So you can see if people are willing to part with their copies. Now, I think that the interesting thing about these announcements is that sometimes the reaction is immediate, and so people are scrambling to their computers to make sure that whatever copies they're selling, they have to make sure they change the values so they don't get hosed. And it's tough when you realize like how fast you're working with. Of course, for the majority of people aren't selling cardboard like 24/7. So not a lot of people know about the market watch or how soon they have to end up changing their orders because there were many times, at least in Cardfight Vanguard, where a card would be announced that changes the complexity of how a different card that's older is played, and then therefore they're gonna go and scramble and try and get them for like $5-7 before their SPs and their regulars jump up X amount of dollars. So at least from my predictions, at least from JKTCG, if they do challenge to add more here, a lot of the prices you see here will probably stay the same. I know that for the majority of like set ones, not many of the cards would change out. So for example, in the triple rare foiling, big standout would be Kagi class aircraft carrier Akagi Kai. So Akagi Kai in particular, she's a definer. Her climax combo is great, eats up all the stock, and she ends up giving power to the whole front row until the beginning of your next turn. She's a game changer, she's an ender, and she's a clock kicker. Now, of course, in future sets, people realize how crazy it is, especially now that her effect is an honor skill. And for decks and sets that have movement in battle phase, that can totally mess up her strategy. But there are times where they don't have it in hand, they don't have any outs, and therefore Kagekai is going to guarantee land of damage, which is key because it also gets around people that are trying to anti-burn and punish burn. Because at least Honorverse, you're sending that to the clock, you're still dealing damage without having to say that it deals damage. Another card that's also you want to look out for, you want your Clumsy to go Inaduma. Inaduma is probably one of the most interesting level 0 cards I've ever seen. Because even though she's a base 2500, which seems like the average power line for a level 0, her skill is amazing. The fact that you clock yourself, so at least it forces you up to level 1, so you're not 0 locked. And if you don't know what that means, you can comment down below asking like, hey, I want to learn how to play this game. Feel free to comment down below with that. I want to know how many of you guys out there are into Weiss Schwarz, because I know that a lot of the Weiss Schwarz content I haven't put up as of late. What I've done is that I've ended up taking a stream off of YouTube, and then I put it into the Weiss Schwarz global community. Now, if you don't know what the Weiss Schwarz global community group on Facebook is, please comment down below. I'll send you a link there to apply to join, because it's probably the biggest community of Weiss Schwarz ever. Because everyone's going to post their decks, everyone's going to post their sells, buys, whatever. And I thought that it was great because my community convinced me to, stream on there so people get to see, and it helps out, drive traffic to the channel. But without much Weiss Schwarz content on there, it's mostly Vanguard. So I've been trying to see how we can expand over to that while still having time. Because at least of a personal note, my last week of my internship is this week. So after this week of internship, what I'm mostly going to be doing is going to be reading my books and taking notes for the upcoming law school semester. But I do want to try and add more content for Weiss on here because this is very good. Now, in terms of content collection, is it a tap or is it a trap? Now, it depends on what you have. If you have a meta build for Kantai, it's probably a tap because you want to see how these values are going to be. I'm not sure exactly what the reprints are for that. If it's either of these girls, then that means you can expect the regular versions to go down, but you can expect the high rarity stuff to go up. Because what I've seen in trading card games is that no matter how many times the thing is reprinted, if there's a special foil, if there's a high rarity foiling of that card and it's still meta and it's reprinted, these values you can expect to either stay static to where they are or they can possibly increase too because it increases their rarity and increases the chance that if you want a max rarity deck, then that means that you probably want to pick up the OGs because people want to make sure that their deck is max rarity or at least high rarity in what regard, because now I've noticed the trend where people are trying to like offload some extra stuff in order to make some cash, and that's up, and I respect that. But if you're going for the non meta stuff that you see, so say for example if you go into Sendai, I started my content build out with Sendai, and $4 I can see how it is. With more sets coming out, I can probably see it dropping. It may drop down to $3 or so, but since the high rarity, maybe it's gonna be stagnant for what, a month or so, until like people realize like maybe you can make some anti-meta decks with it, maybe they can make some two-soul decks with it, etc., etc., etc. And so I think what we have here is a trap for people that are going into non-meta content, because in terms of the max rarity stuff, you can probably get away with ordering them, but when you're ordering non-meta stuff for say like your double rares and your rares, depending on how it is, you probably don't want to invest right now. This is coming from a guy that literally bought a case of Bermuda, but I guess like when you do Market Watch, maybe we get to learn stuff together. And if you have any criticism or suggestions for me on how to make this better, please feel free to do so because I am willing to learn. I'm willing to put myself out there to know what I need to do in order to, make this new episode thing great. I think going into the second set. Actually, before moving that, let's at least go to the Double Rare Plus, which is one of the kind of like more rare sets in particular. Those Double Rare Pluses, they can make a huge difference. Now, of course, you have a wide range. The main two you want to be focusing on, of course, would be Second Yamato class battleship Musashi and Akagi class aircraft character Akagi Kai. And if you pull one or both of these things, you arguably make half your money back on the booster box, even if you pay $80 for it. Because Jesus, that is insane. It is absolutely bonkers. And to think that they're still available on JKTCG. Meta content is still there. It's still there. People just don't realize it. And so going down to your double rares. The double rares is pretty much the trap area because not many stuff you see there is going to be like $5 and above. Out of the 12 cards that you see in the double rare slot, 3 of them are $5 and up. So you have Shimakaze just because I guess of collector's value, or maybe just people want to run really OG meta content. I guess to each their own. And then you have also the red decks where you have first Congo class battleship Congo and third Congo class battleship Haruna. And I don't know too much about the red. I do know that Ronnie Congo is his Shifu, so I've seen him like play a lot with her way back when. It's an interesting build, a lot of salvage, but it gets countered itself by what I'm going to show you next, which will be happening in the rare slot. Now the rare slot's interesting because you get to see a lot of cards in there that are above. You see a number of cards that are above $5, but at least you see some value elsewhere. Now, of course, the ratio is, it seems like, in terms of double rares, you're going to have more cards that are valued high than rares, because rares are rares. Rares can be dollars, rares can be less, or rares can be more than that. And the ones that you want to make sure you tap on would be 7th Kagero class Destroyer Hatsukaze, Faithful Destroyer Befats. I apologize to anybody in Russia that saw me. I apologize for, I hope I didn't butcher the pronunciation of that. But at least in terms of these two, these are the two resources you want to tap on. Because at least as long as the Japanese restriction list doesn't come on there where you have to choose one of three, Hatsukaze and the Faithful Destroyer, those are great. Because Hatsukaze, that's your salvage punish, or your anti-salvage in a way. Because in your battle sets, my apologies. In your battle sets, you want to make sure you have her in the back row, because if you see anybody with a door, you are immediately making them choose not to, because you can just -3 soul the whole field. Then you also have your Faithful Destroyer, which is probably one of the most powerful level 0 to 1 plays ever. Because literally, you have to go on to find your uncommon, or I think it's common, it's probably a common, yeah. That is common, $3. Now for a common card, this is a tap. This is a wholehearted tap, not a trap. Because this changes into this. So Hibiki changes into Betfa. And the thing is though, a very, very small percentage of cards that are common, mind you, ever hit above such a price. Normally commons you see 10 cents, maybe 50 cents. But to see not only Hibiki, but the Compass at $3 each, that's a tap. That's something you want to make sure you tap into those resources and you make sure you try and sell it. Because I guarantee you, the Weiss community is growing. I am very astounded by the amount of growth, at least in my area. Because 4 or 5 years ago, when Weiss tournaments were starting up at Time Warp, and people were entering, and we'd probably get 8 people, 10 people, whatever. And now that we've gotten more consistent people, and we're getting into price support, additional price support for this stuff, now we're actually seeing the value starting to spike up. Not spike up, but also stand out to players to see how valuable this stuff is. Now the thing is though, these compasses and Hibikis, they're still available. So anybody that wants to build meta content, they can feel free to stop by and pick up playsets. Now of course, like, would that change? I'm not sure. But these two cards also anti-fun. Prevents healing. So only cards that add cards from the clock to hand or cards to clock, then you got yourselves, a way out of Hibiki. But if you just heal off, send the waiting room, her heal tax triggers off. And if you have more than one of her in the memory, then literally it has to say pay 2 or put the top card of your deck into your clock. And then it resets again, because if you can't pay the next one, then pretty much you're taking 2 guaranteed damage that can't be canceled. And so that's a little tip out there if you're playing against, Kantai players that have more than one Hibiki in the memory. Now Compass is just your anti-damage. Now of course Compass has seen a little bit of a less effective use because a lot of times you run against cards that have effects that burn on attack. So remember, of course, your basics, your battle steps. You declare your attack front, side, or direct, and then triggers go off. And then, trigger this, trigger that. Then, trigger check. So when you reveal your top card, if it's a climax, or if it's a character, a card with a soul icon, a character, event, etc., then you do X. And after your trigger check, then your opponent does the backup step. And now remember, of course, that the opponent has to have a character that's being front attacked in order to use a backup. So if they side you, or if there's no character there, no backup for you. So, and after that, you do your backup, and then you take your damage. And then your damage, that's what happens when Compass comes into play, because at least when you back up with Compass, and then if you mill that climax, you can target that character if you wish, and then you can negate the damage. Now, the unfortunate part is that you see more and more cards that have hexproof that can't be targeted by stuff. So Compass actually fails there. I think that what the ruling is that you can still use Compass to mill through your deck, but you can't target the person. So if anything, it might just serve as a mill 3, and hopefully you don't hit a climax, but you also have to realize that you're going to be guaranteed a damage. But if anything, it still digs through your deck to hopefully hit a climax in one of those later cards. And of course, the one that I talked about before, I'm not sure if it was this one, maybe it was that one. Junior Kai was the one that was banned in JP. This was the one that granted +1 soul to your fleet girls, and she can't be targeted by card effects. So that was rip. I wish she was errata and restricted, if anything. And then the rest of content you see from there. And then once you get into Content Collection Volume 2, now Content Collection Volume 2 is interesting because not a lot of the cards in there have value. So in Volume 2, your SSPs and your SPs, you can see lesser values than you see here. Like, the most is pretty much if you see Haguro Kaini, because she's the main level 2 that works, and if you don't know what the level 2 does, it's pretty much when another character's frontal attack, you can put her into the waiting room and grant that character plus 3,000 power, which is great for a boost and you all clear out your field. But then her climax combo is immediately on climax placement, search for a Fleeko and add to hand. So you have multiple of her, you search 2 or you search 3, and it's great because it's a plus engine. You ditch your climax, you pretty much place your climax, and you get characters back to set you up for the next turn. Now it's sad because you see the highest prices for these SPs is $50 for your SP and probably $65 for your SSPs. Now going back to your Kantai, SSPs to SSPs, SPs to SSPs. Highest SP as you see there, 45. Your highest SSP is 110. And that proved me wrong because I thought that the SSPs... Yeah. Actually, I think it did prove my point right because the SPs and the SSPs, they're more valued here, at least in terms of SSPs, but the SPs, just because Haguro Kaini is in there, you can see that. But I remember when I used to pick this one up, and it was nice. I used to pick this one up for 80, 90, and it was sad. I can't believe I bought Nagato. I didn't realize how much I minused on that trade. But yeah. So I guess it's past 30 minutes. So I guess like just market watch. I tried, thanks to the viewers that stopped by and saw me do all this. If you have any comments or suggestions on how to make this better, if you have, if you want me just to make sure I have topics ready, or if you want me to post in the Weiss Schwarz groups or anything, feel free to comment down below because I know this is the first episode. It's an experiment. We're going to see how it plays out, and hopefully, we can make something out of this. And, it's something that's interesting. It's something that helps keep me sane in a way. So I guess that's it for the live stream. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I am the Alphonse Usatine Gradelock, and this has been Tapper Trap, and we will catch you next time. So see ya. Woo.